Have you ever felt that chilling moment when the ground beneath you seems to vanish? Not because of an earthquake, but because someone you trusted, someone you built an empire for, decides you're disposable. Imagine dedicating nearly a decade of your life, pouring your soul into a company, sacrificing countless evenings and weekends, only to be met with a smirk and a paper that slashes your worth in half. It's a gut punch, a betrayal that echoes deep within your spirit. But what if, in that very instant of perceived defeat, a different kind of power awakened within you? What if the person trying to break you had no idea that their cruel act was actually the final, perfect push you needed to step into a destiny far grander than anything they could ever comprehend? This isn't just a story about a bad boss or a career change. It's about the silent architects of success, the unseen forces that hold entire structures together, and what happens when they decide to simply stop. It's about realizing your true value, not through validation from others, but through the quiet, undeniable power of your own hands and heart. And trust me, the ending of this story is not what you expect, because sometimes the most devastating revenge isn't what you do, but what you simply cease to do. The air in Elias Thorne's office always felt heavy, thick with the scent of old money and stale ambition. It was a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that promised nothing but the usual grind. Yet something in the way Elias's eyes glinted across his polished mahogany desk told me this was different. I'd been with Thorne and Associates for 9 years. Almost a decade of my life poured into building what he now casually referred to as our legacy. My annual review was supposed to be a formality, a nod to my consistent overperformance, perhaps a modest raise. Instead, he slid a single sheet of paper towards me, his smile a thin, predatory line. My heart, usually a steady drumbeat of efficiency, skipped. The numbers on that page were a cruel joke, a brutal reduction that would barely cover my mortgage, let alone the life I'd meticulously built. He leaned back, a king surveying his domain, utterly convinced of his unassailable power. "Take it or leave it, Evelyn," he stated, his voice devoid of any warmth, any recognition of the countless times I'd pulled his company back from the brink. 9 years. 9 years of 70-hour weeks, of salvaging client relationships he'd carelessly damaged, of being the silent force behind every major success while his name adorned the awards. 9 years of being the one every client truly sought out, the one who understood their unspoken needs, the one who transformed their vague ideas into tangible triumphs. And this paltry sum, was what he believed my worth amounted to, a disposable cog in his self-aggrandizing machine. A lesser woman might have crumbled, might have pleaded, might have felt the hot sting of tears, but something ancient and unyielding stirred within me. A quiet resolve, born not of anger, but of a profound, almost spiritual clarity. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not a powerful executive, but a man utterly blind to the true foundations of his own empire. My voice, when it came, was steady, almost unnervingly calm. "I understand," I replied, the words a soft whisper in the opulent room. "When does this new arrangement begin?" His grin widened, a testament to his belief that he had utterly broken me. "Immediately," he declared, a triumphant gleam in his eyes. I nodded slowly, deliberately, and carefully folded the offensive paper, tucking it into my purse as if it were a precious memento. "Perfect timing," I told him, a subtle tremor in my voice that he, in his arrogance, mistook for defeat. But I saw it, that fleeting flicker of confusion in his expression, a momentary crack in his facade of certainty. My reaction wasn't what he expected, and that, in itself, was a small, delicious victory. He had anticipated tears, arguments, a desperate plea for reconsideration. Instead, he got quiet acceptance, a response so utterly out of sync with his calculated cruelty that it momentarily disarmed him. He couldn't comprehend the quiet storm brewing beneath my composed exterior, the profound shift that had just occurred within my very soul. Before I delved deeper into the intricate dance of events that unfolded next, a dance that would redefine not just my career, but my entire understanding of personal power and divine timing, I want to connect with you, my dear listener. Take a moment right now to share in the comments where you are listening from. I'm genuinely curious to know how far this story of quiet revolution is reaching, how many hearts it might touch across the globe. And if this initial glimpse into betrayal and unexpected strength resonates with you, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and tapping that bell icon. What I'm about to reveal will show you, in vivid detail, how someone can believe they hold all the power, only to discover, with a breathtaking crash, that they never truly had any at all. This is more than just a narrative. It's a testament to the unseen forces that guide us, the spiritual currents that align when we dare to trust our inner knowing, even in the face of what seems like insurmountable adversity. You see, what Elias, in his self-absorbed delusion, failed to grasp as he sat there basking in his perceived triumph, was that the universe had already set a different course for me. 3 weeks prior to that soul-crushing review, a call had come, a whisper of destiny disguised as a business inquiry. It was from Serafina Vance, the visionary behind Vance Innovations, the most respected and successful marketing firm in our entire region. Serafina wasn't just a competitor, she was an industry legend, known for her uncanny ability to spot genuine talent and nurture it. She had been observing my work for years. Not Thorne & Associates' work, but my work. Because in our industry, the true architects of success, the ones who consistently deliver results, are always known, even when another's name is emblazoned on the company door. The whispers of my competence, my dedication, my unique ability to forge deep, lasting connections, had reached her ears long before Elias ever thought to devalue me. "Evelyn," Serafina had said during our discreet coffee meeting, her eyes sparkling with an intelligence that instantly put me at ease, "I want to offer you something profoundly different. Not just a job, but a true partnership. I'm expanding, and I need someone who understands that real sustainable business is built on authentic relationships, on integrity, not on hollow arrogance or inherited titles." I hadn't given her an immediate answer that day. I told her I needed time to process the magnitude of her offer, time to reconcile the comfort of my long-standing, albeit unappreciated position, with the terrifying allure of a new beginning. But sitting there, watching Elias dismantle 9 years of my unwavering commitment with a single dismissive sheet of paper, Serafina's offer didn't just feel like an opportunity. It felt like a divine intervention, the universe aligning its cosmic gears perfectly to propel me forward. It was as if every prayer, every silent plea for recognition, every moment of unacknowledged effort had culminated in this precise, pivotal moment. You have to understand something fundamental about Elias Thorne. He was a man who inherited a kingdom, not one who built it brick by painstaking brick. 12 years ago, his father, a shrewd and genuinely capable businessman, had passed the reins to him. Elias, however, never spent a single day in the trenches of client services. He never had to endure the grueling process of winning over a difficult customer, never stayed up all night untangling someone else's catastrophic blunder, never felt the raw anxiety of a looming deadline. He was one of those individuals who genuinely believed that merely showing up, having his name etched onto the polished brass plaque at the building's entrance, automatically rendered him irreplaceable. His world was a gilded cage of assumptions, where titles trumped talent and superficial appearances overshadowed substantive contributions. He saw the grand edifice, but was utterly blind to the intricate network of steel beams and foundational concrete that truly held it aloft. What Elias, in his profound ignorance, never truly grasped was that for the past 5 years, I had been the silent, unseen architect running his entire operation. Not officially, of course. Officially, my title was Senior Account Manager, a respectable but ultimately understated designation. But in the quiet, pulsating reality of Thorne & Associates, every major decision, every strategic pivot, every critical client interaction funneled through me first. Every crisis, whether a looming PR disaster or a sudden budget cut, was meticulously solved by me, often before it even registered on his radar. Every single client relationship, the very lifeblood of the company, existed and thrived because I had built it, brick by painstaking brick, conversation by heartfelt conversation, over years of unwavering dedication. I didn't just manage accounts. I nurtured connections, cultivated trust, and wove a tapestry of reliability that became synonymous with the firm's success, even if my name was never publicly attached to it. Consider our largest account, Sterling Industries. Their CEO, a formidable and discerning woman named Clara Sterling, believed she had a direct line to the company owner, and in a way, she did. Because that's exactly how I had meticulously structured it. When she called with an urgent issue, a sudden shift in market trends, or a last-minute request, she didn't ask for Elias. She asked for me, by name, with an unwavering expectation of immediate, competent resolution. When she was pleased with our work, which was almost always, she sent heartfelt thank you notes addressed to me personally, often with a small, thoughtful gift. Elias would get copied on the emails. Certainly, a performative gesture to maintain the illusion of his involvement. But it was Clara and I, two women bound by mutual respect and a shared commitment to excellence, who actually navigated the complexities and resolved problems together, forging a bond that went far beyond mere business transactions. It was a connection built on genuine understanding and unwavering trust, a bond that Elias, with all his titles and inherited wealth, could never hope to replicate. Or take, for instance, Horizon Tech, our second-largest client, a sprawling tech conglomerate that demanded precision and foresight. I had been their main point of contact for 7 years, a period during which I had become intimately familiar with their corporate culture, their long-term vision, and even the personal milestones of their leadership. I knew the founder's daughter had just started her freshman year at university, a detail I remembered to congratulate him on. I recalled his wife's challenging chemotherapy schedule from years past, and would subtly check in on her well-being through his assistant. I sent genuine congratulations when their quarterly results surpassed expectations, not as a formality, but as a true acknowledgement of their hard work. Elias, on the other hand, would show up to the annual dinner, make superficial small talk, and then retreat, leaving the real work, the real connection, to me. When the founder, a brilliant but notoriously demanding man named Arthur, needed genuine guidance, a strategic pivot, or a confidential sounding board, he didn't call Elias. He called me. This pattern, this silent, undeniable truth, repeated itself across our entire client list, encompassing 27 major accounts. Every single relationship, every thread of trust, every vital connection ran through me. This wasn't because I was some expert manipulator, weaving a web of deceit behind Elias's back. It was because I sincerely, deeply cared about their success, about their challenges, about their aspirations. I remembered the minute details, the subtle nuances of their businesses and their lives. I followed up on every concern, no matter how small. I delivered what I said I would, exactly when I said I would, with an unwavering commitment to excellence. My approach was rooted in empathy, in genuine human connection, in the understanding that business, at its core, is about people. While Elias was busy playing golf at exclusive country clubs and attending superficial networking events where he'd pass out business cards to people who'd forget his name within a week, I was meticulously creating a foundation of genuine professional relationships. These were not fleeting acquaintances. They were deep, resilient bonds built over years of steady, considerate interaction, based on proven ability and mutual respect. This was the true, invisible power I wielded, a power Elias was utterly incapable of seeing, let alone appreciating. But here's what truly made Elias's position so precarious, what he never, in his wildest, most self-aggrandizing dreams, could have anticipated. The intricate web of suppliers and vendors who kept his company operating, from the printing presses to the catering services, from the IT support to the office supply distributors, also worked mainly with me. When we needed high-quality printing on short notice for a critical presentation, it wasn't Elias who made the call. It was me, personally, to old Mr. Henderson at Premier Prints, a man who recognized my voice instantly and always found a way to make it happen. When we needed last-minute catering for a high-stakes client event, Rosa at Artisan Foods knew my preferences and my urgency, ensuring everything was perfect. When our complex computer systems inevitably malfunctioned, Marcus from Nexus Tech Solutions would ask for me specifically, because he knew I would describe the issue clearly, calmly, and treat his technicians with the respect they deserved. These weren't just business connections. They were human relationships, forged over years of steady, considerate interaction, built on a foundation of reliability and mutual understanding. And as I sat there, folding that paper, a profound realization settled over me. Elias had not just cut my salary, He had, unknowingly, severed the very lifelines of his own existence. He had just handed me the scissors, and the next cut would be his own. The week after my clandestine meeting with Serafina, a profound shift occurred within me. It wasn't a sudden burst of anger or a desire for retribution, but rather a quiet, almost meditative clarity. I began to observe Elias's business, my own daily contributions, and the intricate web of interactions with a new, almost clinical detachment. It was as if a veil had been lifted, allowing me to see the true, fragile architecture of Thorne & Associates for the very first time. And what I saw was nothing short of overwhelming. My name, my direct contact information, was the one most clients had saved in their phones, the number they instinctively dialed when a true challenge arose. My relationships, forged over years of genuine care and consistent delivery, were the invisible engines that brought in repeat business and a steady stream of referrals. I was copied on at least 90% of all significant emails, the silent arbiter of decisions, the unseen hand guiding the ship through turbulent waters. It was then that the classic mistake Elias had made became glaringly, painfully obvious. He had meticulously constructed a business where he was the highly visible, charismatic front, the polished facade that greeted the world. But I, in my quiet dedication, was the true, indispensable foundation. Remove me, and everything else, every grand pronouncement, every glossy presentation, every carefully cultivated illusion, had absolutely nothing solid to stand on. It was a revelation that brought with it a strange mix of sorrow and exhilaration. Sorrow for the wasted years, the unacknowledged effort, the quiet sacrifices. Exhilaration for the undeniable truth of my own power, a power that had been silently growing, unseen and unappreciated, until this very moment. It was a spiritual awakening, a recognition that my worth was not dictated by a salary figure or a boss's approval, but by the tangible impact I had on the world around me. So, when Elias slid that salary cut across his desk with such blatant, almost gleeful satisfaction, when he stared at me as if I were some disposable employee who should be eternally grateful for whatever meager scraps he deigned to toss my way, I knew, with absolute certainty, exactly what I was going to do. Perfect timing, I had said, and I meant every single word, not as a sarcastic retort, but as a profound acknowledgement of the universe's intricate design. I stood up from his office that day, my posture straighter, my resolve firmer than it had ever been, and walked directly to my desk. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. My fingers flew across the keyboard, typing a concise professional email to Serafina Vance. "I accept your partnership offer," I wrote, the words feeling like a declaration of independence. "When would you like me to begin?" Her reply, a testament to her own efficiency and foresight, arrived within 20 minutes. "How about Monday?" It was Thursday. The wheels of destiny, once set in motion, spun with breathtaking speed. That very afternoon, I submitted my formal resignation to Human Resources, 2 weeks' notice, as meticulously required by my contract. It was courteous, professional, and gave Elias and his remaining team what appeared to be ample time to transition my responsibilities to someone else. Of course, what Elias, in his limited understanding of human capital and genuine connection, didn't comprehend was that my responsibilities couldn't actually be passed along. You cannot transfer 9 years of painstakingly built relationships, of deep-seated trust, of intuitive understanding, in a mere 2-week handover period. It was like trying to transfer the soul of a living organism into a lifeless shell. When I informed him I was leaving, he barely glanced up from his computer, his eyes fixated on some trivial report. "Fine," he mumbled, a dismissive wave of his hand. "We'll manage without you." I nearly laughed aloud, a sharp, bitter sound that would have shattered the fragile peace of his office. Nearly. Instead, I simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of his impending, self-inflicted doom. I spent my last 2 weeks at Thorne & Associates being, quite possibly, the most cooperative departing employee in corporate history. I documented every single project I was handling, creating meticulously detailed client profiles complete with contact information, background notes, and even personal anecdotes that illuminated the nuances of each relationship. I wrote thorough, step-by-step guides for maintaining vendor relationships, outlining preferred contacts, historical agreements, and even their favorite coffee orders. I organized my digital and physical files with an almost obsessive precision, leaving behind clear, unambiguous instructions for whoever would inherit my accounts. I left no stone unturned, no detail unrecorded, ensuring that the information was readily available. What I deliberately, and quite consciously, did not do, however, was transfer the actual relationships themselves, because, as I've said, you cannot transfer trust. You cannot document the unspoken understanding that Clara Sterling calls me when she's frustrated because she knows I'll genuinely listen, not just to her words, but to the underlying emotion, and uncover solutions she hasn't even considered. You cannot write a manual explaining that Arthur from Horizon Tech relies on my judgment, because I have never, not once, led him astray, always prioritizing his company's true needs over any internal politics. You cannot hand over the profound respect I had earned from old Mr. Henderson at Premier Prince, who knew that when I promised something, it would get done. No excuses, no delays. These were not mere professional connections. They were deeply personal bonds, forged in the crucible of shared challenges and mutual respect. They were the invisible threads that held the entire tapestry of Thorne and Associates together, and Elias, in his blindness, had just allowed me to snip them, one by one, with surgical precision. The quiet satisfaction I felt was not born of malice, but of a deep spiritual certainty that I was finally aligning my actions with my true worth. The stage was set, the players were in position, and the curtain was about to rise on a drama Elias Thorne was utterly unprepared to witness. On my final day at Thorne and Associates, a Friday afternoon, the office hummed with its usual end-of-week energy, a deceptive calm before the storm. Elias was conveniently in a protracted meeting, blissfully unaware that the very foundation of his empire was about to walk out the door. I cleaned out my desk with a quiet reverence, a sense of closure washing over me like a gentle tide. I took only my personal belongings, a few cherished diplomas that represented years of hard work, a small, resilient succulent I'd brought to brighten my corner of the corporate world, and a worn, leather-bound journal filled with my reflections and aspirations. Every piece of company property, every client file, every business record remained meticulously organized, exactly where it should be. I wasn't taking anything that wasn't rightfully mine. I was simply no longer available to be the invisible structure holding everything together. My departure was not an act of theft, but an act of withdrawal, a quiet reclamation of my own energy and expertise. I shook hands with colleagues, some of whom I'd worked alongside for nearly a decade, offering genuine goodbyes. I shared warm hugs with a few trusted souls, kindred spirits who had navigated the labyrinthine corridors of Thorne and Associates with me, people who understood, without words, the quiet significance of this moment. Then, precisely at 5 p.m., as the last rays of the setting sun streamed through the office windows, I walked out. There was no fanfare, no dramatic exit, just the soft click of the door behind me, a sound that, to my ears, resonated with the profound echo of a new beginning. It felt like shedding an old skin, stepping into the crisp, invigorating air of freedom, leaving behind the suffocating weight of unappreciated labor. The world outside felt brighter, sharper, imbued with a fresh sense of possibility. Monday morning dawned with a vibrant energy I hadn't felt in years. I began my new role as Serafina's partner at Vance Innovations, a name that perfectly encapsulated the forward-thinking, dynamic spirit of our new venture. We had meticulously restructured the partnership, ensuring that I would have not just equity, but full decision-making authority from day one. My new office, unlike the windowless cubicle I'd endured for so long, boasted expansive windows that actually opened, allowing the fresh city air to invigorate my workspace. There was a state-of-the-art coffee machine that worked flawlessly, a small but significant detail that spoke volumes about the company's respect for its employees. And most importantly, I had a partner who valued competence, integrity, and genuine collaboration over ego, titles, or inherited privilege. It was a stark, refreshing contrast to the world I had just left behind. By Tuesday, the subtle tremors began. My old phone number, the one that had been the direct lifeline for so many of Thorne & Associates' crucial clients, was disconnected, routed to a generic company voicemail. It was a small, almost imperceptible shift, but it was the first crack in Elias's carefully constructed facade. By Wednesday, things at Thorne & Associates started getting interesting. Clara Sterling, the formidable CEO of Sterling Industries, called the main office looking for me, her voice undoubtedly carrying an edge of urgency. The receptionist, likely flustered, transferred her directly to Elias, who, predictably, had absolutely no idea why she was calling or what specific project she was referring to. His usual bluster and vague assurances were no match for Clara's sharp intellect and demand for concrete answers. Clara, puzzled and undoubtedly irritated, hung up, and then, as I would later learn, immediately called Arthur, the CEO of Horizon Tech, to ask if he knew what on earth was going on at Thorne & Associates. The whispers had begun. Thursday morning, Arthur from Horizon Tech called Thorne & Associates, seeking clarification on a critical aspect of an upcoming campaign launch. Elias, ever eager to project an image of control, took the call himself, attempting to sound informed and authoritative. But within 5 excruciating minutes, it became painfully clear that he didn't understand the intricate details of his own company's project, let alone the specific nuances of Horizon Tech's needs. Arthur, a man who valued precision above all else, grew increasingly frustrated. "Could I please speak with someone who is actually familiar with my account?" he asked, his voice tight with barely concealed annoyance. There was no one who possessed the institutional knowledge, the personal connection, or the intuitive understanding that I had cultivated over 7 years. The silence on the other end of the line must have been deafening, a stark testament to the void I had left behind. By Friday of that first week, the cracks had widened into fissures. 3 more major clients had called Thorne & Associates with urgent questions or pressing concerns, and each had received equally unhelpful, vague, or downright confusing replies. 2 key vendors, old Mr. Henderson from Premier Prints and Rosa from Artisan Foods, called about overdue payments that I normally would have handled with a single efficient phone call. The IT support company, Nexus Tech Solutions, arrived for a scheduled maintenance visit that Elias had completely forgotten was on the calendar, leading to a scramble and further disruption. I knew all of this, not because I was actively seeking information, but because people started calling me directly. Not to complain about Elias, not exactly, but to ask if I knew what was happening, if I could shed some light on the sudden, inexplicable chaos that had engulfed Thorne & Associates. Clara Sterling, resourceful as ever, tracked down my new number through a mutual contact and called, ostensibly to congratulate me on my new role. During that conversation, she mentioned almost casually how odd it was that my previous company suddenly seemed so utterly chaotic. "It's like they forgot how to do business," she mused, a hint of genuine bewilderment in her voice. "Nobody there seems to know what's going on anymore." I listened politely, offering no explanations, no justifications, no fuel to the fire. What was I supposed to say? That Elias had spent 9 years taking credit for work he couldn't actually perform himself? The truth, in its raw, unvarnished form, was already unfolding. A silent, undeniable testament to the power of genuine competence. The stage was set for the next act, and the audience, it seemed, was growing. The second week after my departure was when the real trouble began to brew for Thorne & Associates. A slow, agonizing unraveling that felt almost predestined. One of their largest suppliers, the printing company I'd worked with for years, old Mr. Henderson's Premier Prints, called about a past due payment. This wasn't just a minor oversight. It was a significant sum, and Mr. Henderson, a man of quiet dignity and unwavering principles, was not one to be trifled with. Elias, apparently, became defensive and rude, his arrogance flaring up like a poorly managed fire. He implied that Mr. Henderson should be more patient about the money, suggesting that a company of Thorne & Associates' supposed stature shouldn't be questioned about such trivial matters. It was a grave miscalculation, a profound disrespect for a relationship I had painstakingly cultivated over nearly a decade. Mr. Henderson, a man whose word was his bond, called me that very afternoon. His voice, usually calm and measured, carried a distinct edge of frustration and disappointment. "Evelyn," he began, a sigh escaping his lips, "I don't know what's happening over there at Thorne & Associates, but that's not how we're used to being treated. If this is how they want to operate going forward, With such blatant disregard for our agreements and our long-standing partnership, we may need to reconsider our relationship entirely. My heart ached for him, for the disrespect he was enduring, but I knew I had to maintain my professional boundaries. "That sounds like a discussion you should have with them directly, Mr. Henderson," I replied, my voice gentle but firm. "I'm not involved with their business anymore, but of course, as a new partner at Vance Innovations, I also mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that my new firm was actively looking for dependable, high-quality printing partners, and would he, perhaps, be open to talking about a possible collaboration." The silence on the line was brief, pregnant with possibility, before he responded with a thoughtful, "I'd be very open to that, Evelyn. Very open indeed. This is where people sometimes misunderstand what happened next, where the line between ethical competition and corporate sabotage can seem blurred. I didn't actively undermine Elias's business. I didn't steal his clients or insult his company in public forums. My actions were far more subtle, far more potent. I simply began building relationships in my new position at Vance Innovations the same way I had always built relationships, by being capable, consistent, genuinely supportive, and utterly reliable. When Clara Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Industries, mentioned to a mutual contact that she was increasingly irritated with the lack of communication and the baffling incompetence from her current marketing firm, I listened. When she later called me directly, expressing her profound disappointment and asking if my new company might be open to discussing her account, I said, with genuine warmth, that we would be absolutely delighted to have that conversation. When Arthur from Horizon Tech's CEO called to congratulate me on my new venture, and, almost immediately, began to inquire about Vance Innovations' capabilities and our approach to complex campaigns, I was straightforward, honest, and confident about what Serafina and I could deliver. There was no need for elaborate pitches or aggressive sales tactics. The relationships were already there, the trust already established. The foundation had been laid years ago, brick by brick, by my own hands. Within 3 weeks of leaving Thorne & Associates, Serafina and I had already arranged formal meetings with 4 of Elias's former major clients. This wasn't because I had lured them away with cunning schemes or underhanded tactics. It was because they, in their growing frustration and disillusionment, had approached us, seeking the very level of service, competence, and genuine connection they had once taken for granted. The beautiful, almost spiritual truth about building authentic relationships, about pouring your heart and soul into genuine connection, is that people remember how you made them feel. They remember the calm in the storm, the clarity in the confusion, the unwavering support in times of crisis. When they are receiving poor treatment, experiencing baffling incompetence, or feeling utterly ignored by one provider, their minds naturally drift back to someone who consistently provided excellent service, who truly saw and valued them. It's not corporate sabotage or unethical competition. It's simply basic human nature, a fundamental law of reciprocity. It's the universe rebalancing itself, ensuring that true value finds its rightful place. By the end of my first month at Vance Innovations, Serafina and I had signed 3 new major accounts, all of them, by a remarkable coincidence that felt more like divine alignment, happened to be companies I had previously worked with at Thorne & Associates. Companies that had become profoundly frustrated with their current marketing firm's inability to offer the level of service, the depth of understanding, and the genuine partnership they were accustomed to. The turning point, the moment that truly solidified our rapid ascent, came when Horizon Tech, our second-largest client from my previous life, made the switch. Arthur, their CEO, called Elias personally to explain their decision, a gesture of respect that Elias, in his self-absorption, likely misinterpreted. Arthur explained, calmly and rationally, that they would be moving their account to a firm that better understood their needs, a firm that could provide the strategic partnership they required. Elias, predictably, turned hostile, accusing Arthur of being unduly influenced by a disloyal former employee. Arthur, a man of immense patience, listened for a moment. Then, as he later recounted to me, simply laughed. "My dear friends, if you've been following this journey, if Evelyn's story of quiet strength and profound transformation has resonated with your own experiences, I want to take a moment to truly connect with you. This isn't just about a narrative. It's about the shared human experience of being underestimated, of finding your voice, and of stepping into your true power. Your presence here, your willingness to listen, means the world to me. If you haven't already, please consider becoming a part of our growing community. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a gentle like if it touched your heart, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss any future stories that might just be the inspiration you need. But more than that, I want to hear your voice. Have you ever faced a moment where someone tried to diminish your worth, only for it to become the catalyst for your greatest leap forward? What was that moment like for you? Share your own stories, your triumphs, your quiet revolutions, in the comments below. Your experiences are powerful, and they can be a beacon of hope for someone else. And if there are themes, emotions, or types of stories you'd love for us to explore next, please let me know. This channel is a space for us to grow, learn, and be inspired together. Your insights truly shape what we create here. Thank you for being here, for being you. Evelyn, Arthur had recounted to me that afternoon, his voice still laced with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. That man just proved exactly why we made the right decision. He spent 10 minutes yelling at me about employee loyalty and competitive ethics, but he couldn't answer a single question about our actual business requirements. Not one. It's like he never truly understood what we do, or why we hired his company in the first place. Arthur's words, delivered with a shake of his head, resonated deeply within me. It was then, in that moment of shared understanding, that I realized the profound truth of what was really happening. Elias hadn't just lost me as an employee. He had lost the person who acted as the essential translator between his inflated ego and the actual, tangible requirements of running a successful company. I had been the bridge, the interpreter, the silent buffer that shielded his incompetence from becoming glaringly visible to his most crucial clients. Without me there to bridge that ever-widening gap, clients were getting unfiltered, unvarnished exposure to his profound lack of understanding, his superficiality, and his utter inability to grasp the intricate details that truly mattered. The stories, like tendrils of smoke, began circulating back to me through various industry contacts, each one a testament to the accelerating decline of Thorne & Associates. I heard how Elias had completely forgotten about a major presentation for a key prospective client, attempting to improvise with outdated data and vague platitudes, leaving the room with a palpable sense of awkwardness and missed opportunity. I learned how he had promised deliverables his remaining, already overwhelmed team couldn't possibly meet, simply because they lacked the deep client relationships required to gather the necessary information, to understand the unspoken needs, to truly execute. There was the incident where he completely bungled a crisis situation that I would have resolved with a few simple, well-placed calls, turning a minor hiccup into a full-blown panic, damaging the company's reputation further. Each misstep, each act of bluster and incompetence, served only to make my former clients more profoundly grateful for the level of service, the clarity, and the genuine partnership they were now receiving from Serafina and me at Vance Innovations. Each frustrating interaction with Elias served as a stark, painful reminder of why they had actually appreciated working with his firm, when I had been the one quietly, diligently making everything function behind the scenes. Approximately 6 weeks after my departure, a chance encounter solidified the grim reality of Thorne & Associates' downward spiral. I bumped into one of my former co-workers, a bright and dedicated young woman named Chloe, at a small, independent coffee shop near our old office. She looked utterly exhausted, her eyes shadowed with a weariness that went beyond mere fatigue. "Evelyn," she whispered, her voice low and urgent, as if fearing being overheard. "It's chaos over there. Absolute chaos." She clutched her coffee cup as if it were a lifeline. "Elias keeps telling us to handle things you used to do, but none of us know how. He just expects us to magically replicate your relationships, your intuition, your years of experience. It's impossible. Half the vendors won't even return our messages anymore, and the ones who do are demanding payment up front. Clients are constantly asking where you went, and Elias just keeps saying we need to figure it out, because business has to move forward. But it's not moving forward, Evelyn. It's grinding to a halt." I felt a genuine pang of sorrow for Chloe and the others, who were caught in the agonizing aftermath of Elias's profound mismanagement. They were good people, talented and hardworking, but they were stuck in an impossible situation, trying to bail water from a rapidly sinking ship with a sieve. "Are you looking for other opportunities, Chloe?" I asked, my voice gentle, knowing the answer even before she spoke. She looked around nervously, then met my gaze, a flicker of desperation in her eyes. "Everyone is, Evelyn," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "But Elias has started making threats about non-competes and legal action if anyone else leaves. He's trying to scare us into staying, but it's only making things worse." That's when I knew, with absolute certainty, that he was genuinely panicking. Empty legal threats, baseless accusations, and desperate attempts to control through fear are the last resorts of incompetent leaders. They are the flailing gestures of those who, when faced with the undeniable reality of their own failures, realize they have completely lost control of a situation they never truly understood in the first place. It was a clear sign of his spiritual bankruptcy, his inability to lead with anything other than bluster and intimidation. He was not just losing his business. He was losing his grip on reality, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. And in that moment, I understood that my departure had not been an act of revenge, but an act of divine justice, allowing the natural order of things to reassert itself. The stage was set for the next, inevitable phase of this unfolding drama, a phase that would reveal even deeper truths about the nature of true leadership and the power of authentic connection. The news of Elias's desperate threats about non-competes and legal action spread like wildfire through the industry, not just within Thorne & Associates, but to other firms as well. It was a clear signal of his vulnerability, a desperate attempt to cling to control that only served to highlight his rapidly diminishing power. And as word spread about the growing success and positive work environment at Vance Innovations, a stark contrast to the toxic atmosphere at Thorne & Associates, a natural migration began. Serafina and I started receiving calls from talented, disillusioned people still trapped within Elias's crumbling empire. These weren't calls I solicited. I wasn't actively recruiting them. Instead, they were reaching out, drawn by the promise of a place where their abilities would be respected, their contributions valued, and their professional growth nurtured. It was a testament to the universal human desire for dignity and purpose in one's work. When people feel trapped in a sinking operation, when their efforts are ignored and their potential stifled, they naturally drift toward opportunities that appear stable, rewarding, and genuinely appreciative of their skills. It's an instinct for self-preservation, a spiritual yearning for alignment. Over the next month, Serafina and I carefully, thoughtfully, hired 3 of Elias's former employees. Each one gave proper notice, adhering to their contractual obligations, demonstrating the very professionalism that Elias himself seemed to have forgotten. And, crucially, each one was released from any legitimate contractual restrictions, as their previous roles and the circumstances of their departure made any non-compete clauses largely unenforceable. They were not just seeking new jobs. They were seeking sanctuary, a place where their professional souls could breathe again. With each new hire, Vance Innovations gained a deeper, more nuanced institutional awareness about the accounts that were struggling at Thorne & Associates. This wasn't about proprietary data or confidential secrets. It was about general industry knowledge, about the subtle dynamics of client relationships, and about the professional insight these individuals had gained over years of direct experience. They brought with them an understanding of market trends, client preferences, and operational challenges that was invaluable. They weren't betraying secrets. They were simply bringing their accumulated wisdom and expertise to a place where it would finally be honored and utilized effectively. It was like watching pieces of a complex puzzle, once scattered and ignored, slowly reassemble into a vibrant, coherent picture. The final domino, the one that truly signaled the end of Thorne & Associates as a significant entity, fell when Sterling Industries, our largest account from my previous life, made their definitive choice to switch agencies. Clara Sterling, a woman of unwavering resolve, called me personally to explain their decision. Her voice, though regretful, was firm. "Evelyn," she began, a sigh of exasperation escaping her lips. "We've been trying to make it work with your old company for 2 months now. Truly we have. But it's like working with strangers. Nobody there understands our business, our history, our unique challenges. Every single conversation starts from scratch, as if we've never spoken before. We're paying premium prices for amateur results, and frankly, It's impacting our own bottom line." Her words were not an accusation, but a simple, undeniable statement of fact. The trust, the understanding, the seamless collaboration that I had built over years had vanished, leaving behind a void that Elias, with all his bluster, could never fill. When Serafina and I secured the Sterling Industries account, it was more than just a business victory. It was a profound validation of our philosophy. It was a testament to the power of genuine relationships, of consistent competence, and of a leadership style rooted in empathy and respect. In just 3 short months, Vance Innovations had transformed from a promising boutique operation into the fastest-growing marketing firm in the city, a major force in the local market, all because Elias Thorne, in his profound arrogance and spiritual blindness, believed that slashing my salary would teach me my place. He thought he was cutting me down, but in reality, he was simply pruning the dead wood, allowing me to blossom into something far more magnificent. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, had orchestrated a beautiful, undeniable shift. The last time I saw Elias was at a prominent industry networking event, approximately 4 months after I had left his firm. He looked awful, a shadow of his former self. His usually impeccably tailored suit seemed to hang loosely on his frame. His face was etched with stress, his eyes drained of their former arrogant sparkle. He moved through the room with a defensive, almost hunted air. When he spotted me across the crowded room, engaged in a lively conversation with a potential new client, his eyes narrowed, and a flicker of something akin to desperation crossed his face. He actually tried to approach, pushing through the throng of professionals. "Evelyn," he said, his voice louder than necessary, a desperate plea disguised as a command. "We need to talk." I turned to face him, my posture calm, my gaze steady. I was courteous, but firm. "Elias," I replied, my voice even, "I don't think there's anything for us to discuss." His face flushed, and he seemed to lose all composure. "You ruined my business," he exclaimed, his voice rising, loud enough that people nearby turned to listen, their conversations momentarily hushed. I looked at him steadily, a profound sense of peace settling over me. "I didn't ruin anything, Elias," I stated, my voice clear and resonant. "I just stopped fixing everything." That was the moment. I could see it in his expression, a sudden dawning comprehension, a flicker of raw, unadulterated understanding. For 9 long years he had been running a company where his most important contribution was, ironically, staying out of my way, while I quietly kept things functioning. When he pushed me out, he lost the only person who had been shielding his profound incompetence from becoming glaringly visible to his clients, his vendors, and even his own employees. He didn't lose his business because I sabotaged it. He lost it because he had never actually been running it in the first place. The room around us had grown silent, a collective intake of breath. Others in our industry were listening, witnessing a conversation that perfectly demonstrated why some companies thrive while others collapse. It had nothing to do with revenge or corporate warfare. It had everything to do with recognizing that lasting success comes from real competence, authentic relationships, and genuine leadership, not from empty titles, inflated ego, and the fragile illusions of authority. I excused myself politely, a quiet dignity in my step, and returned to Serafina's conversation with a potential new client, leaving Elias to stand alone in the uncomfortable silence, his empire now truly a ghost of its former self. 6 months later, the whispers from industry contacts solidified into concrete news. Elias Thorne had been forced to sell what little remained of Thorne & Associates to a larger, more aggressive firm. The brand name, once proudly displayed on that polished brass plaque, disappeared entirely, swallowed whole by a corporate entity that cared nothing for its history or its legacy. His father's life's work, built over decades of genuine effort and shrewd business acumen, was gone, dissolved into the vast, impersonal machinery of corporate acquisition. It was a stark, almost poetic end to an empire built on borrowed time and unacknowledged labor. The universe, it seemed, had a way of rebalancing the scales, ensuring that what was not genuinely earned could not truly endure. But here's the part most people misunderstand about this story, the subtle nuance that elevates it beyond a simple tale of corporate comeuppance. I never intended to destroy Elias Thorne or his company. I never crafted some elaborate, vengeful plan, meticulously plotting his downfall. My actions were far simpler, far more profound. I simply refused to continue supporting someone who treated me as disposable, as an interchangeable cog, while simultaneously relying completely on my work, my relationships, and my silent dedication to maintain his reputation and his illusion of success. My departure was an act of self-preservation, a spiritual reclaiming of my own energy and worth, not an act of aggression. The most devastating revenge I've come to understand isn't what you actively do to someone. It's what unfolds, inevitably and often dramatically, when you finally stop doing everything on their behalf. It's the quiet, powerful act of withdrawing your light from a place that refused to acknowledge its brilliance. Today, 2 years later, Serafina and I run Vance Innovations, the most successful marketing consultancy across 3 states. We have 47 dedicated employees, offices in 2 vibrant cities, and a client waitlist stretching nearly 6 months, a testament to the demand for genuine competence and authentic relationships. Forbes magazine highlighted us in a prominent article about women-owned companies transforming their industries, recognizing our innovative approach and our commitment to ethical leadership. The local business journal even named me Entrepreneur of the Year, an honor that felt both surreal and deeply validating. It was a journey that had begun with a quiet act of defiance, a simple refusal to be diminished, and had blossomed into a thriving enterprise built on the very principles Elias had so carelessly discarded. But that isn't the final twist I want to share, not the most unexpected turn in this unfolding narrative. The real twist, the one that still sends a shiver down my spine, is what happened to Elias after his company collapsed, and how it led to the most unexpected phone call I've ever received, a call that challenged my understanding of fate and forgiveness. Remember how I mentioned he was forced to sell whatever was left of his business? What I didn't know then, what I couldn't possibly have foreseen, was who ended up buying it. Turns out, it was purchased by Meridian Holdings, one of those enormous, faceless corporate investment groups that specialize in scooping up failing companies, stripping them for assets, and either flipping them for a quick profit or shutting them down completely. Elias, the man who once lorded over his inherited kingdom, walked away with just enough money to clear his most pressing debts and perhaps survive 6 more months, a far cry from the cushy retirement he probably pictured when he first inherited his father's firm. His fall from grace was complete, a stark reminder that true wealth is not just about money, but about the value you create and the relationships you nurture. For nearly a year after that, I didn't hear anything substantial about him. Occasionally, someone at an industry event would mention spotting him, a ghost of his former self, trying to patch up his tattered reputation, desperately attempting to network his way back into relevance. But nobody took him seriously anymore. Word spreads quickly in our tight-knit industry, and everyone already knew, with a quiet certainty, what had truly happened to Thorne & Associates. The story of his downfall, and my subsequent rise, had become a cautionary tale, a whispered legend among those who understood the true dynamics of power and influence. It was a powerful reminder that reputation, once shattered, is incredibly difficult to rebuild, especially when it's founded on such fragile ground. Then, about 8 months ago, something unusual began to happen, a series of events that felt almost orchestrated by an unseen hand. I started receiving calls from headhunters, prestigious executive search firms, asking if I could provide insight into Elias Thorne's background and work history. Apparently, he was applying for senior leadership roles at various firms, and his resume, I imagined, made it sound like he'd been some kind of visionary executive who had built a thriving agency before choosing to pursue new challenges. I was always honest with those recruiters, maintaining my integrity even when faced with the temptation to indulge in a moment of schadenfreude. I explained, calmly and factually, that while Elias technically owned a company, he hadn't been very involved in daily operations, or, crucially, in client relationships. I never insulted him personally, never stooped to his level of petty cruelty, but I certainly didn't help him craft a fictional narrative about his abilities either. Most of those calls ended with the recruiter thanking me for my candor and moving on to other candidates, a quiet testament to the power of truth. But then, 3 months ago, I received a call that completely stunned me, a call that would once again challenge my understanding of destiny and the intricate dance of the universe. It was a call that promised a twist I could never have anticipated, a final, breathtaking turn in this extraordinary journey. "Miss Haynes," a crisp, professional voice had begun, pulling me from my reverie. "This is Patricia Williams from Blackstone Associates. We're an executive search firm, and we're hoping you might assist with a rather unusual situation." My breath hitched. Blackstone Associates. The name alone carried immense weight in the corporate world. They were one of the most respected headhunting firms in the nation, renowned for placing CEOs and senior executives at Fortune 500 companies, the kind of roles that shaped entire industries. I had absolutely no idea why they would be reaching out to me, a partner in a rapidly growing but still relatively young marketing consultancy. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots, but the puzzle pieces simply wouldn't fit. Was it a referral? Did they need advice on a marketing strategy? The possibilities swirled, each one more improbable than the last. "We've been retained by a client to find a chief marketing officer," Patricia continued, her voice smooth and confident, cutting through my thoughts. "It's a major role, Miss Haynes, with extensive responsibility and commensurate compensation. Based on our exhaustive research, we believe you might be the ideal candidate." I was flattered, genuinely so, but also profoundly puzzled. My life with Serafina at Vance Innovations was thriving, a testament to everything I believed in. We were building something real, something meaningful, and the thought of leaving it, even for a prestigious role, felt almost sacrilegious. "I appreciate the offer, Patricia," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "But I'm very satisfied with my current work. I'm a partner at my own firm, and we're experiencing incredible growth." "We understand," she responded, a hint of a smile in her voice, as if she anticipated my reaction. "And we deeply respect your accomplishments, Miss Haynes. Your reputation precedes you. However, this particular opportunity is truly exceptional. Our client is specifically searching for someone with your unique blend of relationship-building ability, your profound operational expertise, and your proven track record of turning challenges into triumphs. The compensation, to give you a preliminary idea, begins at $400,000 annually, plus significant equity and performance bonuses that could easily double that amount. $400,000. The figure hung in the air, a shimmering, almost unreal number. It wasn't about the money itself, not entirely. My life was comfortable, fulfilling, but an offer of that magnitude, from a firm like Blackstone, meant they were serious. They weren't just looking for a competent executive, they were searching for someone extraordinary, someone with a rare, almost alchemical ability to transform businesses. It definitely caught my attention, not because I wanted to leave Serafina or our company, but because it hinted at a challenge, a scale of impact that was truly compelling. "Can you tell me who the client is?" I asked, my curiosity now fully piqued, a subtle tremor of anticipation running through me. This was the crucial piece of the puzzle, the identity that would either make sense of this improbable call or deepen the mystery. Patricia paused, and I could almost hear her choosing her words with precision. "That's where things become sensitive, Miss Haynes," she finally said, her tone shifting slightly, becoming more guarded. "The role is with Meridian Holdings, specifically to oversee marketing operations for their recently acquired businesses. They're seeking someone who can repair client relationships, restore operational structure, and essentially breathe new life into companies that have suffered under poor management." I nearly dropped the phone. Meridian Holdings. The name echoed in my mind like a thunderclap. Meridian Holdings, the enormous corporate investment group that had scooped up Elias Thorne's defunct company, stripping it for assets. The irony, the sheer, breathtaking audacity of the universe, was almost too much to bear. My mind reeled, trying to reconcile this impossible connection. Was this some elaborate cosmic joke? A test of my resolve? Or something far more profound? A spiritual alignment I couldn't yet comprehend. "I'm not sure that particular role is a good fit for me," I managed to say, my voice carefully neutral, masking the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. "Miss Haynes, please at least consider meeting with them," Patricia urged, sensing my hesitation. "They're prepared to offer significant autonomy and resources, a blank canvas, if you will, to rebuild and innovate. And frankly, they specifically requested you by name after reviewing your work, your reputation, and the remarkable trajectory of Vance Innovations. They are deeply impressed by your unique ability to cultivate loyalty and drive growth." That last detail, the specific request for me by name, was the final, undeniable hook. It wasn't just a generic search. It was a targeted pursuit, a recognition of my unique value, even by the very entity that had absorbed the remnants of my past. The universe, it seemed, was not just aligning, it was actively orchestrating. And I knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, that I had to explore this further, if only to understand the full scope of this extraordinary, almost unbelievable twist of fate. The stage was set for a meeting that promised to reveal even deeper layers of this intricate, emotional journey. That evening, the conversation with Serafina was unlike any we'd had before. The entire situation felt surreal, a plot twist so outlandish it could only be true. I recounted every detail of Patricia Williams's call, the staggering compensation, the immense responsibility, and the utterly baffling identity of the client, Meridian Holdings. Serafina listened intently, her keen mind processing every nuance, her eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and profound insight. When I finished, a thoughtful silence hung between us, broken only by the soft hum of the city outside our office window. "They want you to rehabilitate companies ruined by incompetent leadership," Serafina finally mused, her voice low, almost reverent. "Evelyn, that's actually a fascinating position. You'd be doing what you used to do for Elias, but for multiple organizations, and with real recognition, proper compensation, and the authority you always deserved." She paused, then looked at me, a gentle challenge in her gaze. "And as for working for the company that bought his firm, why does that bother you so much? Is it the ghost of the past, or something else?" "It just feels strange, Serafina," I admitted, the words barely a whisper, like a cosmic joke or a twisted form of irony, to go from being dismissed by him to potentially working for the very entity that absorbed his failure. I trailed off, searching for the right words to articulate the complex swirl of emotions. Serafina reached across the table, her hand gently covering mine. "Evelyn, you didn't make his business collapse. You simply stopped preventing it from collapsing. There's a crucial difference. If Meridian Holdings, a company of their stature, realizes they need someone with your unique abilities to fix similar problems, to restore what others have broken, that's not irony. That's a profound compliment to your expertise, your integrity, and your undeniable value. It's the universe affirming your true calling." Her words, as always, cut through the emotional fog, bringing clarity and perspective. They resonated with a deep spiritual truth that I had been grappling with. I decided to take the meeting, mostly out of a profound sense of curiosity, a desire to understand the full scope of this extraordinary turn of events. Meridian Holdings' office was housed in a gleaming downtown skyscraper, a monument to corporate power, with sweeping panoramic views of the entire city, a stark contrast to the modest but vibrant Vance Innovations. Patricia Williams greeted me in the opulent lobby, her smile warm and genuine, and escorted me to the 42nd floor. There, I met David Chen, the regional director overseeing their latest acquisitions. David wasn't anything like what I expected from a high-powered corporate executive. He was mid-40s, calm, impeccably dressed, and possessed an almost encyclopedic knowledge of organizational structures and market dynamics. He had clearly studied my background, the trajectory of Vance Innovations, and, most intriguingly, the entire situation with Elias Thorne's company. There was no judgment in his eyes, only a quiet, analytical intelligence. "Cordelia," David began, his voice measured and direct, "thank you for coming. I want to be completely candid about why we're interested in you." He pulled out a thick, leather-bound binder and set it on the polished conference table between us. Over the last 18 months, Meridian has acquired 7 small to mid-sized companies in different sectors. All of them were failing when we bought them, and all of them, remarkably, showed the same underlying pattern of dysfunction. Skilled, dedicated employees being undervalued, even actively suppressed, by ego-driven, often absentee leadership. Strong, vital client relationships being ignored or mishandled, leading to rapid erosion of trust. Operational expertise being pushed aside in favor of superficial leadership and empty titles. He opened the folder, revealing detailed analyses, intricate charts, and sobering financial summaries of each acquisition. It was a chillingly familiar narrative, a mirror reflecting the very dynamics I had escaped. "In every single case," David continued, his gaze unwavering, We found that the true, enduring value of the company lived not in the executive suite, but in the relationships and skill sets of mid-level employees who were never properly supported or compensated. These were the silent architects, the unseen forces holding everything together. When we attempted to rebuild these companies using standard management strategies, focusing on top-down directives and financial restructuring, we struggled. We struggled immensely to restore the client trust and operational stability that had originally made them successful. I could already see precisely where this conversation was headed, a profound sense of recognition washing over me. You want me to help you identify and retain the individuals who actually kept those companies running, I stated, the words a quiet affirmation of his unspoken need. Precisely, David confirmed, a subtle smile touching his lips. But beyond that, we want you to create a structured, replicable approach for restoring companies that have lost their operational core due to ineffective ego-driven leadership. We believe you understand something fundamental about business relationships, about the human element of success, that most executives, even highly successful ones, completely overlook. He leaned forward in his chair, his intensity palpable. We've studied what happened with your former employer's organization, Thorne & Associates, not to assign guilt or blame, but to understand the internal dynamics that caused such a rapid, almost catastrophic collapse. What we uncovered was, frankly, remarkable. He pulled out another report. This one centered specifically on Elias Thorne's company, a detailed autopsy of its demise. The universe, it seemed, was not just aligning, it was providing the evidence. Before you left, David Chen continued, his voice calm but impactful, gesturing towards the report on Elias's company. That business had steady revenue growth, strong client retention, and reliable supplier connections, all the indicators of a healthy, functioning enterprise. Within 6 months of your departure, all of those indicators dropped sharply, almost precipitously. The decline was so rapid, so profound, it was statistically anomalous. But here's what truly caught our eye, what made us sit up and take notice. He flipped to another section of the report, revealing graphs that charted client satisfaction and project outcomes. The clients who transitioned to your new firm, Vance Innovations, reported not just higher satisfaction, but demonstrably better outcomes than they'd ever experienced before, even while operating under someone else's structure, even when you were the unseen force. It was a clear, undeniable pattern. I remained unsure where he was steering this, my mind still grappling with the sheer weight of the information he was presenting. It was one thing to know your own value, another entirely to see it quantified, analyzed, and presented by a major investment firm. And what does that have to do with Meridian Holdings? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, trying to connect the dots between my past and this astonishing present. David smiled, a genuine, appreciative smile that reached his eyes. That tells us, Miss Haynes, that you weren't merely preserving existing relationships. You were delivering a level of service, a depth of understanding, and a quality of results that surpassed what those clients had previously received, even when you were operating within a flawed system. You weren't just a manager, you were a catalyst for excellence, a true leader of people and projects even without the title. He leaned back, his gaze steady and intense. We want to give you the authority and resources to do for our acquired companies what you did for your own business. Identify real talent, rebuild genuine relationships from the ground up, and create long-term operational strength based on competence, on integrity, not on ego or hierarchy. We want you to be the architect of restoration, the one who breathes life back into these struggling entities. The offer, when he laid it out in full, was even more significant than Patricia had initially suggested. A $400,000 base salary, yes, but also performance bonuses that could easily double that amount, plus substantial equity in the companies I successfully restored. I would have a dedicated team of analysts and operational experts at my disposal, a veritable army of resources. I would report directly to David, with full autonomy over hiring, firing, and strategic decision-making for the marketing operations of all acquired properties. It was a position of immense power, a chance to reshape entire segments of the industry, to implement the very principles I believed in on a grand scale. But the most intriguing, the most utterly unbelievable part of the offer was what David said next, a detail that sent a jolt through my entire being. a twist that felt almost divinely orchestrated. "There's one more thing, Cordelia," he said, his voice dropping slightly, a hint of something conspiratorial in his tone. "We have a particular situation that might interest you on a personal level." He pulled out one final document, a slim file that seemed to hum with unspoken significance. 3 weeks ago, we acquired another struggling marketing firm. The person running it had been trying to rebuild his reputation after his previous company imploded, but he repeated many of the same leadership failures: skilled employees leaving, client trust eroding, operational chaos, a familiar pattern of self-destruction. My heartbeat quickened, a frantic drum against my ribs. A cold certainty, a premonition washed over me. I knew, with an unsettling clarity, who he was about to name. "The manager's name," David stated, his eyes meeting mine, "is Elias Thorne." I stared at David, utterly speechless, in complete disbelief. The words hung in the air, heavy with an irony so profound it almost defied reality. "You purchased the company Elias works for?" I finally managed to stammer, my voice barely a whisper. David nodded slowly. Actually, he never owned it. He had been hired as the general manager by a group of investors who, unfortunately, assumed his experience running a prior agency would be valuable. When that arrangement inevitably fell apart, the investors approached us to acquire the assets and restore the business. David flipped open the document to show financial summaries and operational evaluations, a grim testament to Elias's consistent failures. "The company has potential," he explained. "A solid client list, strong staff, good infrastructure, but it's suffering from the exact same leadership issues that destroyed his last company. The employees don't trust management. Clients are fed up with uneven service, and no one seems to know how to coordinate the moving pieces. It's a mirror image of Thorne and Associates, a repeating pattern of incompetence." I could barely process what he was saying, the sheer magnitude of the universe's intricate design. "You want me to take over the company where Elias works?" I asked, the question feeling surreal, almost blasphemous. "We want you to rebuild it correctly," David clarified, his gaze unwavering. "What happens to Mr. Thorne would be entirely your choice as the operational director. You'd have full authority over the staffing and leadership structure, including his position." The irony was so perfect, so exquisitely crafted, it almost didn't feel real. The universe was not just aligning, it was handing me the chance to become Elias's superior, to control his professional future, to determine whether he stayed or left. It was the ultimate revenge scenario, delivered to me on a silver platter, a final, undeniable validation of my worth. Every slight, every dismissal, every moment of unacknowledged effort could now be repaid, not with malice, but with a simple, authoritative decision. And in that moment, as the full weight of this incredible power settled upon me, I realized something profoundly important about who I had become, about the woman I had evolved into. The crossroads of choice lay before me, not just a professional decision, but a spiritual one, a test of my true character. "Before you left," David continued, his finger tracing a line across the detailed report on Thorne and Associates, "that business had steady revenue growth, strong client retention, and reliable supplier connections, all the indicators of a healthy, functioning enterprise. Within 6 months of your departure, all of those indicators dropped sharply, almost precipitously. The decline was not gradual, it was a rapid, undeniable freefall. But here's what really caught our eye, what truly made us understand the depth of your impact. The clients who transitioned to your new firm, Vance Innovations, reported not just satisfaction, but higher satisfaction and better outcomes than they'd ever experienced before, even while operating under Elias Thorne's structure." He looked up, his gaze piercing, as if trying to gauge my reaction, to see if I fully grasped the profound implication of his words. I remained unsure where he was steering this conversation, the full weight of his revelation still settling upon me. My mind was racing, trying to connect the dots, to understand the true purpose behind this meticulous dissection of my past. "And what does that have to do with Meridian Holdings?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, a mix of apprehension and growing intrigue. David smiled, a genuine, almost knowing smile. "That tells us, Cordelia, that you weren't merely preserving existing relationships, maintaining the status quo. You were delivering a level of service, a depth of insight, and a quality of outcome that surpassed what those clients had previously received. Even when you were operating within a system that undervalued you, you were the engine, the true source of value, regardless of the name on the door. He paused, allowing his words to sink in, to resonate with the quiet truth they held. We want to give you the authority, the resources, and the complete autonomy to do for our acquired companies what you did for your own business. Identify real talent, rebuild genuine relationships from the ground up, and create long-term operational strength based on competence, integrity, and authentic leadership, not on ego or inherited hierarchy. The offer he then laid out was even more significant, more breathtaking than Patricia had initially suggested. A $400,000 base salary, yes, but with performance bonuses that could realistically double that amount, plus substantial equity in the companies I successfully restored. I would have a dedicated team of brilliant analysts and operational experts at my disposal, a veritable army of talent to support my vision. I would report directly to David, with full, unquestioned autonomy over hiring, firing, and all strategic decision-making for the marketing operations of all acquired properties. It was a dream role, a chance to implement my philosophy on a grand scale, to truly make a difference, to heal broken businesses, and empower overlooked talent. It was everything I had ever quietly yearned for, packaged into an irresistible opportunity. But the most intriguing, the most utterly astonishing part of the offer was what David said next, a detail that sent a jolt through my entire being, a twist that felt almost divinely orchestrated. "There's one more thing, Cordelia," he began, his voice dropping slightly, a hint of something conspiratorial in his tone. "We have a particular situation that might interest you on a personal level." He pulled out one final document, a slim file that seemed to hum with unspoken significance. 3 weeks ago, we acquired another struggling marketing firm. The person running it had been trying to rebuild his reputation after his previous company imploded, but he, unfortunately, repeated many of the same leadership failures. Skilled employees leaving, client trust eroding, operational chaos, a complete lack of genuine connection. My heartbeat quickened, a frantic drum against my ribs. I knew, with a chilling certainty, where this was going. "The manager's name," David stated, his eyes fixed on mine, "is Elias Thorne." I stared at David in complete disbelief, the words hanging in the air, heavy with an almost unbearable irony. My mind struggled to process the sheer magnitude of this revelation. "You purchased the company Elias works for?" I finally managed to stammer, my voice barely a whisper. David nodded slowly. Actually, he never owned it. He had been hired as the general manager by a group of investors who, unfortunately, assumed his experience running a prior agency would be valuable. When that arrangement inevitably fell apart, the investors approached us to acquire the assets and restore the business. David flipped open the document, revealing financial summaries and operational evaluations of this new acquisition. "The company has potential," he explained. "A solid client list, strong staff, good infrastructure, but it's suffering from the exact same leadership issues that destroyed his last company. The employees don't trust management. Clients are fed up with uneven service, and no one seems to know how to coordinate the moving pieces." I could barely process what he was saying, the layers of cosmic irony piling up, one on top of the other. "You want me to take over the company where Elias works?" I asked, the question feeling utterly surreal. "We want you to rebuild it correctly," David clarified, his gaze unwavering. "What happens to Mr. Thorne would be entirely your choice as the operational director. You'd have full authority over the staffing and leadership structure, including his position." The irony was so perfect, so exquisitely crafted by the unseen hand of destiny, it almost didn't feel real. The universe was, quite literally, handing me the chance to become Elias's superior, to control his professional future, to determine whether he stayed or left. It was the ultimate revenge scenario, delivered to me on a silver platter, a culmination of every slight, every unacknowledged effort, every moment of quiet suffering. And in that moment, faced with the absolute power to dictate his fate, I realized something profoundly important about who I had become, a truth that would redefine my understanding of success and true fulfillment. It was the ultimate revenge scenario, delivered to me on a silver platter. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, had orchestrated a moment where I could, with a single, decisive action, reclaim every ounce of dignity, every moment of unacknowledged effort, every quiet tear shed in frustration. I could become Elias's superior, control his professional future, determine whether he stayed or left. The power was absolute, undeniable, and entirely within my grasp. And that's when I realized something profoundly important about who I had become, about the woman who had emerged from the crucible of betrayal and self-discovery. I didn't want it, not because I wasn't still upset about how he had treated me, about the years of quiet disrespect and the blatant devaluation of my worth, not because I believed he deserved a second chance or that his incompetence should be rewarded. My decision was far more personal, far more deeply rooted in my own spiritual journey. Accepting that role, even with its immense power and staggering compensation, would mean dedicating my energy, my passion, my precious time to repairing damages caused by someone else's incompetence. It would mean stepping back into a cycle of fixing, of mitigating, of constantly reacting to the chaos created by another's ego. And I had invested 9 years of my career doing precisely that for Elias Thorne. I had spent countless hours boosting someone else's ego, patching up mistakes I never caused, and being the invisible force that kept a fragile empire from crumbling. My path now was one of creation, of building something meaningful, something truly aligned with my values. Alongside Serafina, my spirit yearned for forward momentum, for innovation, not for the echoes of a painful past. "David," I began, my voice clear and steady, a profound sense of peace settling over me. "I'm genuinely honored by this proposal. The compensation is impressive, truly. The role is undeniably demanding, and I can absolutely see how it would be professionally fulfilling, a chance to make a significant impact." I paused, collecting my thoughts, ensuring my words conveyed both gratitude and unwavering conviction. "But I've invested 9 years of my career boosting someone else's ego and fixing mistakes I never caused. I'm not willing to repeat that, even with better pay, even with full acknowledgement, even with the power to rewrite the past. My journey now is about building, not just rebuilding." David looked let down, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes, but not shocked. He was a man who understood human nature, and perhaps he had anticipated this very response. "I completely understand, Cordelia," he replied, a respectful nod. "We had to extend the offer because you're precisely the kind of leader we need, a rare talent, but we respect your choice to prioritize your own company's expansion, your own vision." As I exited the gleaming skyscraper, Patricia walked me to the elevator, her expression thoughtful. "Can I ask you something, off the record?" she inquired, her voice low. "Go ahead," I encouraged, a sense of lightness in my step. "When David mentioned the Elias Thorne situation, I noticed your expression shift," she observed, her eyes keen. "Was there some personal history that made the offer less appealing, less desirable?" I reflected on that question as the elevator smoothly dropped 42 floors, carrying me away from a past I had finally, truly transcended. "Actually," I told her, a genuine smile gracing my lips, "it was the opposite. The personal history made me realize that the best revenge isn't gaining power over someone who harmed you. It's creating something so successful, so authentic, so deeply aligned with your own spirit, that their opinion of you, their very existence, becomes completely meaningless." 6 months later, Serafina and I launched our third office, a vibrant hub of creativity and innovation. We now employ 63 dedicated people, a diverse and talented team, including 12 former employees from various companies that Meridian Holdings has acquired and transformed, individuals who sought a place where their true value was recognized. Our client list now includes Fortune 500 companies, a testament to our unwavering commitment to excellence and our unique approach to relationship building. We've been contacted by 3 separate investment firms about expansion possibilities, a clear sign that our vision is resonating far beyond our initial dreams. Last month, I received an invitation to speak at the National Marketing Association's annual conference, a keynote speech to an audience of 1,500 industry professionals, on the very topics of sustainable growth and genuine leadership. It was an honor beyond measure, a culmination of years of quiet dedication and unwavering belief in the power of authentic connection. Elias will likely be in that crowd. He still shows up at industry events, a diminished figure, still attempting to network his way into fresh opportunities, still clinging to the illusion of relevance. If he's there, he'll watch me earn recognition for the expertise he never bothered to value when he had the chance. But here's what I've discovered about real success, about true spiritual fulfillment. It's not about proving anything to those who underestimated you. It's about building something so substantial, so purposeful, so deeply rooted in your own truth, that their validation, their judgment, their very memory becomes utterly irrelevant. The best revenge isn't ruining someone who wronged you. It's becoming so successful, so genuinely happy, so utterly at peace with your own journey, that you stop remembering they exist. And when you do, occasionally, recall them, you realize their ability to harm you, to diminish your spirit, vanished the moment you stopped seeking their approval, the moment you reclaimed your own power. That salary cut Elias gave me 2 years ago was meant to remind me of my place, to put me back in a box he had designed. Instead, it reminded me of my immeasurable value, of the boundless potential that lay within me, waiting to be unleashed. It was a divine push, a catalyst for a transformation I never knew I needed. If this story connected with you, if Evelyn's journey resonated with a part of your own spirit, please share it with someone who needs this message, someone who feels overlooked or taken for granted. Leave a comment telling me about a moment when someone underestimated you, and how that experience shifted your view of your own potential, how it ignited a fire within you. And if you're currently in a situation where you feel overlooked or taken for granted, remember this profound truth. The strongest thing you can do is stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's insecurity. Your worth isn't defined by how others treat you. It's defined by the unwavering light within you, waiting to shine. Trust that light, nurture it, and watch as the universe conspires to elevate you to your rightful place.